Yeah. So I think for a postdoctoral researcher or teaching fellow, one of the key aspects is to get yourself quite a balanced portfolio, because the more balanced is your portfolio, the more opportunities there will be for you in the future. So if you are very skewed, then of course you're limiting yourself to a niche. Whereas having a good balance will enable you to basically access more opportunity. So I started off as a postdoctoral researcher at King's in 2001, and one of the things that's really important is to try to identify a good mentor. So someone who's senior, it may be your line manager or someone else in your department who you can relate to, and having a mentor is very useful, because obviously that person has already trodden that path and can give you guidance on how to best undergo the sort of training that you would need to achieve your career ambitions. So quite early on, I identified that there were three sort of areas in which postdoctoral researchers or teaching fellows would need to develop in terms of progressing their professional development, and these are, of course, research, teaching, and management. And the split or the balance of these three things is dependent on the nature of your contract and the focus of the work that you're undertaking. But as a postdoctoral member of staff, you'd be thinking of trying to achieve training in all of these three areas. So that's exactly what I did when during my 6 years as a postdoc. I didn't just focus on one area alone. I was employed to do research, but at the same time I developed the other areas, which for me were teaching and also management. So in terms of research training, of course you can attend courses and so forth, which are relevant to your particular area of research. And of course the typical things like attending conferences and meetings and so forth help you develop that particular aspect of your professional development. But for the other areas, in my case, such as teaching and management, I really had to step up to get exposure and develop myself in those particular areas. So one of the things is to try to look for opportunities in the areas where we are not so focused, and make sure that you get some exposure there. So I was quite quick to volunteer for teaching within my department, and also within my faculty, in fact. And also I was also happy to take on some, for example, some project management in order to prepare myself, hopefully, for the next stage. Leaning on my own experience and the fact that taking opportunities, certainly in teaching and in management, that's helped me a lot to secure my first academic position, which I did in 2007. I'm obviously quite keen to enable that for my own staff, and therefore I actively give them opportunities and ask them to get involved in teaching and management. So, I mean, it's not a requirement often of a postdoctoral contract to be doing these things, but I think it's certainly worthwhile getting involved and building up your experience, but not just building your experience, but also maybe working towards some professional qualifications in these areas. So one of the advantages of having a balanced portfolio in terms of research, teaching and management is that once you have exposure to these areas, you can then decide which of these areas suits your personal style the most, which of these areas you think you can actually excel in and actually use that to drive your own career forward. And a good example of that was one of my postdocs who came in as a pure researcher, and I gave him the opportunity to teach on one of our undergraduate courses. And initially he was very apprehensive to take the opportunity because he really felt this wasn't going to be something that he would be good at. And now, 5 or 6 years down the line, he's just about to take a full-time senior teaching fellow contract because he's now decided that this is actually what he wants to do for his career, and he wants to now take the sort of academic education pathway and go up the ranks via that route.